JoJo Siwa just broke the internet with what a lot of people are calling the worst rebrand in the history of the world. But there's more to the story than what meets the eye. And while a lot of what she did in this rebrand was straight up tomfoolery, there's something about this rebrand, something a little dark and evil, that might actually make the whole thing a genius move. In this video, we are going to dive deep into the JoJo Siwa rebrand and answer the question, is she crazy or is she a genius? Hey, what's happening? For those of you who don't know me, my name is Zeky Ahmed, aka Emperor Zek the Wicked, and I help creators and brands build cult-like followings online. I've helped my clients blow up their brands and get millions of views, and more importantly, drive as much as $54,000 per month in new business. This video is the first of a series I'm going to be doing here on YouTube where I'm going to dive deep into celebrity branding, trends, and all that type of stuff. So if you're interested and want to get some insights from a branding and marketing perspective, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now, if you don't know who JoJo Siwa is, she got her start in the dance TV world. She was on that one show with Abby Lee Miller, and I don't know much about the show, but my wife apparently used to watch it like crazy, and I think she's a bit of a freak about it. But when I told her there's this crazy chick named Abby who likes to pick on little kids,
she deserves nothing.
Right away, she knew exactly who I was talking about. So anyways, JoJo Siwa, when she was really young, I think she was like 9 years old, was on this show. And that's what got her famous because she had this explosive personality. People loved her. She used to mouth off to Abby Lee Miller.
No crying children.
Well, if you yell at me, I'm gonna cry.
And she just had this standout personality that really made her stick in people's minds from the first moment they watched the show. After JoJo got her start on TV, JoJo Siwa made the smart move and started a YouTube channel. And this is where she really started dominating. She was able to build this massive personal brand and became known for her JoJo Siwa bow ties and merch. Now, when I say this blew up, in 2018 alone, those hair bows made her $400 million. I wouldn't mind a piece of that money. And if you have a younger sibling from Gen Alpha or maybe a kid, they're all obsessed with her. The entire generation of children are basically a cult for JoJo Siwa. Eventually, she got picked up by Nickelodeon.
Hey everyone, it's JoJo Siwa here, and I am here to give you guys a sneak peek of Nickelodeon's.
Things were looking real nice for her and her mama. However, not everything was perfect in paradise. Because you can imagine if you had to cosplay as your 5-year-old self for so many years, that can get to you. And by the time JoJo Siwa was 17 years old, she had had enough of it. In a way, she was a victim to her own fame. And understandably, she wanted to get away from that. So at the end of 2021, she did something that in a lot of ways took a big hit to her brand, but also helped her in a couple other ways too. She came out as gay.
Do you know how cool it is to be gay?
Nope. Now, if you've spent any time on TikTok and YouTube, and especially watched some of the Daily Wire,
facts don't care about your feelings,
then you can imagine what the response was like for someone like JoJo Siwa, a personal brand geared entirely to children who had this cult-like following among an entire population of 5-year-olds, coming out publicly as gay and posting a bunch of videos of her kissing her girlfriend. Parents went crazy. A lot of them didn't want their kids following JoJo Siwa anymore. At the same time, it helped her appeal to a new audience because she became a gay icon online. And while she was still marketing to children at the same time, she also started leaning in deeper into her identity as a gay pop culture icon. She got on Dancing with the Stars, and she was one half of the first ever same-sex coupling. She started performing at Pride events, hosted her own Pride party and concerts, and even dropped a line of JoJo's Pride merch. Then, in April 2022, she took it to a whole other level. For years, since she was 9 years old, everybody knew JoJo Siwa to be this childlike, colorfully dressed, grown-up 5-year-old, basically, who always had a colorful bow in her hair and the most outlandish glittery costumes. When all of a sudden, she was basically like, F that noise, decided to chop off the ponytail. It was around the same exact time that an even bigger controversy and one of the defining moments in her career took place, which is when Nickelodeon, which had been profiting off her for so many years and who she was one of their popular stars, decided not to invite her to the Children's Choice Awards.
A lot of you have been asking me why I'm not at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. I wasn't invited.
And according to her and her fans, it was because she came out as gay. So that blew up into a whole thing. And then a year later, she got into a beef with Candace Owens, who came out publicly and said that
JoJo Siwa is a fake lesbian. She is on the same track as Demi Lovato, who once was a lesbian, then was non-binary, then became a fish, then became an alien. And honestly, at her core, Demi Lovato was just a very sad, spiritually lost individual.
So they started clapping back at each other, with JoJo stitching Candace Owens' video, and then Candace Owens coming back with more heat. Interestingly enough, I took some time to look through the Google Trends of the last 10 years of JoJo Siwa's career. If we look at the trend over the past 10 years, her career, while it took off really well in the beginning, has been on a downward trend for quite a while. And every so often, we see one of these periods where the attention really blows up for for her, one of which was when she had that beef with Candace Owens. But if you look from that point all the way up until now, with everybody going crazy about her rebrand, her career has been in a constant decline. It wasn't until February of this year where JoJo Siwa started getting attention again. First with her transforming her whole look to appear a little bit like what a lot of people have been calling lesbian Jake Paul. And then finally, what we're talking about here today, her botched rebrand that everybody's going crazy about because, well, it was honestly really disappointing. And we'll get to talking about the rebrand in a moment, but as I said earlier in the video, there's another side to this whole thing. You know, everybody's saying this rebrand is really stupid, and I do agree. There were some massive mistakes made with this rebrand, might even bury JoJo Siwa's brand for the long term. However, there's a whole other element to this rebrand, which I do see some people addressing, but a lot of people are completely missing this. And like I said, it's a bit evil and dark, but when you take it into account, it puts this entire rebrand in a totally different light. And I'll get more into that after we talk about what happened with this whole rebrand. But long story short, as I said, we can see from the Google Trends, JoJo Siwa's career has been on a downturn for a long time. And I don't think it's crazy to say at this point, she's got to be desperate to try and save herself and get attention however she can. She spent her whole life, built her brand as a 9-year-old, and then up until now, at the age of 20, a decade later, she's been forced to cosplay as this 9-year-old for literally half of her life. On top of that, she's been so massively successful. She's smart. Her mom is smart. As far as marketing goes, they built a huge business. However, there's a double-edged sword to this kind of success because, especially when you have it so young, it's the only life JoJo Siwa has ever known. So I can imagine seeing her attention dissipate over the years has to be scary as because everything she's invested her entire life into, her family has invested their entire life into, and is the foundation for this very luxurious life they live, is in jeopardy and could be gone within the next couple of years if she doesn't do something smart quick. On top of that, I remember what it was like when I was going through my teenage years and early 20s and all that. We all feel this urge to rebel. At that point in our life, we're all trying to find ourselves and become our own person. I can imagine for JoJo Siwa, her entire life being paraded in public, that has to be so much more pronounced. So a rebrand was inevitable. At some point, you got to break away from the childish Disney brand if you want to stick around for the long term. The question is just, how do you do it? Well, here's how JoJo Siwa went about it. On February 29th this year, she posted cryptically on TikTok about a meeting that was going to change everything. Then she started hinting a lot about finally becoming an adult.
New era of life, we're becoming an adult.
A few days after the meeting announcement, she posted this.
Warning, the following content is not made for children and may be disturbing or offensive to some viewers. May contain sexual themes, violence, strong language, dramatic scenarios, and flashing lights. Viewer discretion is advised.
And from there, she just kept bombarding TikTok with content about how shocking her new rebrand was going to be, how everything was changing. She even went on the Jennifer Hudson show. And
JoJo, you coming out with some new music.
What?
Girl, tell us about it.
Yesterday, I gave the heads up. It's not for kids anymore.
Oh.
Pick your poison if you stick around because it's not for kids.
Finally, the Karma song and video dropped. She came out with this amateur kids face painting looking parody of Kiss that, if you look at it, was kind of not even really that different from the whole JoJo Siwa brand in the first place. Before, she was just colorful and glittery. Now she's just dark and glittery. On top of that, she had hyped the music video up like crazy, saying that it was going to shock everybody. There's going to be so many things that you would never expect to see. But then the most shocking thing about the whole video was that she was gay and she was acting gay, but she had already been being gay for several years, so it wasn't really that shocking. The song itself, which she also said was going to be shocking, the most shocking thing about it was that she said the word karma's a I should have known better. Effed around. She couldn't even say the word. And on top of that, if you remember the whole trigger warning that she posted, she promised that there was going to be violence. I watched that music video and I didn't see a single second of violence. I want my violence. But anyways, let me contain myself. So the internet didn't respond very well to the whole rebrand. Everybody felt that it was a massive disappointment. And even worse, they just started creating a whole lot of memes about her.
Dream guest on my podcast. Oh my God.
And it wasn't just the internet. Celebrities started making fun of her too. Tana Mongo, I don't know how to say her last name, but the girl from the Cancel podcast posted this to her TikTok.
I was a bad girl. I'm doing bad things. You think she's ever taken like a perk 30 and like cussed somebody out?
And that got little old JoJo triggered because JoJo thought her and Tana were friends. JoJo had been on her podcast in the past, and apparently James Charles, the infamous predator, made fun of JoJo Siwa with his own content, but they're friends, so he had asked her for permission first, but Tana didn't. So JoJo went on Nick Vile's podcast to talk a little smack about it, which led to a whole episode on the Canceled podcast with Tana putting JoJo on full blast and the beef going full bonkers and taking over the internet. So JoJo had a big problem on her hands. She had been working towards this rebrand now for quite a while. She thought it was going to be this revolutionary thing. She kept referring to it as her Miley Cyrus bangers moment.
I was like, this is what I want. She is my number one idol. I want to do what she did with Bangers. I want to have that moment.
And she honestly thought this was going to be her coming of age moment into adulthood and everybody would take her seriously. But that's not what happened. So she needed to do some damage control and she started going on a whole press tour, trying to change the narrative, saying she's just been trolling everybody all along. JoJo, you weren't trolling. Come on now. I went through your TikTok. I spent a grueling 10 hours of my life that I can never get back through your TikTok content and you were not trolling. But anyway, she went on this press tour and she made the whole situation way worse for herself because of some of the wild she said. First claiming that she was inventing quote unquote gay pop.
I wanted to start a new genre of music. And they said, what do you mean? And I said, well, it's called gay pop.
As if there was no such thing as Elton John, Lady Gaga, Diddy, and I don't know, insert half of the entire pop industry. But anyway, she started getting a lot of flack for that, and then she tracked it back in other interviews afterwards. She had also said some other stuff that was getting her a ton of hate, which I found pretty funny because she kept going on about how she's the first person to ever do this in history, go from being a child star to becoming a full-on adult star. So that's on the surface what happened with the whole rebrand. And I think without me even having to point it out, you can already see what some of the big blunders are that she made. However, as I said earlier in this video, there's a whole other aspect to this rebrand, which some people are noticing, most people are not, that puts the entire rebrand in a different light. And is the reason that although I think the rebrand was done very poorly, and she definitely has a lot of damage control to do, there is an aspect to this that might have been kind of genius. And here's what I mean. If you remember, I showed you the Google Trends that show us how JoJo Siwa has been basically, since she had her controversy with Candace Owens up until now, on a pretty constant decline in terms of attention. And then all of a sudden in February of 2024, she started going hard with this rebrand and whipped it out of nowhere. Well, you know what else happened in February 2024? Some serious allegations that came out against her and her mom. And here's what I think. I've seen other YouTubers say they think this whole rebrand is actually a cover up for the allegations that came out, which I'll reveal in a second. But I don't think that's exactly the case. I think she's been wanting to have this rebrand for a very, very long time, genuinely. She's had to play this same character from when she was 9 years old. And as somebody in their 20s now, that's got to get to you. And we already see that she's been trying to change up her image for a while. So it was just a matter of time that she was eventually going to try to attempt some kind of rebrand to be taken seriously as an adult star and not have to live as this 5-year-old anymore. Now, with that said, was she originally going to do it now? I don't know. Here's my theory. I think she did plan to have a rebrand, but the reason it's happening right now is because their hand was forced because of the allegations that came out. And this rebrand, although done very poorly, is their successful attempt at burying those allegations, because the allegations started gaining some steam early on when they first got put on blast. But now, over the past month, it's been completely buried in all this talk about JoJo Siwa's rebrand. Now, what were those evil, sinister allegations I'm hinting at? One of the ex-members from a show that JoJo Siwa and her mom created called XOMG Pop came out and revealed some really fucked up shit about how JoJo and her mom were treating the stars behind the scenes. They're basically recreating what JoJo went through back in her days dealing with Abby Lee Miller. But this time it was even worse because they were literally abusing the stars on their show because of health conditions they had and things of that sort. On top of that, at the same time, there were other allegations that came out. Not allegations, actually, it's verifiable. You can find it online, of instances where JoJo Siwa had gone on interviews and press tours defending people who were outed as child predators. Miranda Sings, or whatever her real name is on YouTube, James Charles, and the like. And she's been really tight friends with them. She even had them come out to her parties, and I think they were at the party for her rebrand too. So a lot of this stuff all of a sudden started coming out in February 2024. So while this rebrand was obviously not done in a way that she could be taken seriously, I think that aspect of it might have actually been evil genius, because now all the attention has been taken away from those serious allegations, and instead everybody's talking about this rebrand. And honestly, if I was in her shoes, I was her PR director or brand advisor or whatever, if she had to choose between the discussion being about the abuse these girls on her show went through, and even worse, as a former Nickelodeon star, vending child predators, versus, yo, did you see JoJo Siwa's rebrand and how stupid that was? I'll choose that second discussion every day, because the thing is, she's still young. She's only 20 years old. In the grand scheme of things, this could be very early on in her career. So while this rebrand definitely did hurt her name and reputation big time, if they're smart about how they navigate this for the next steps, I do believe it's still redeemable, especially if she takes a step back from the spotlight for a while and then comes back later on with a more serious rebrand. So anyways, with all of that said, I just want to mention a couple just thoughts from a marketing and branding perspective, going back to the rebrand itself, putting the allegations and all that aside, what I think she did wrong and what she could have done better. One of the biggest mistakes that she made in this whole thing is everything she did was purely for attention and shock value. And she'll tell you that herself. I'm all about polarizing your audiences, using controversy, and anyone who's been a client of mine or who follows me on my other social media platforms knows that I talk about this stuff all the time, and I do actually encourage it. But here's the thing with using controversy and shock value. You need to have something strong to back it up with. Otherwise, it's going to shoot you in the foot. And that's exactly what we see happening here with JoJo Siwa. You see, she went straight for shock value, and she was trying to recreate her own Miley Cyrus bangers moment. But here's the thing with Miley's bangers moment. She went for shock value, yes, but she also had a really good product to back it up. She makes good music. So yeah, she attracted people with the shock value, but then she had something of true value to give them. Problem with JoJo Siwa is she tried to go for this shock value, which she didn't even do a good job at the shock value itself, because she did too much announcing and too much hyping it up. Miley Cyrus, as far as I remember, didn't hype up her bangers moment. It just happened. She didn't talk about how she was going to do something crazy. So JoJo spent all this time posting on social media, going on shows, talking about how her song, her music video, her adult rebrand is all going to be so crazy, so shocking. It's going to give us violence that she didn't give to us, which I might just sue her for false advertising on that. But she built all this hype, and then when she delivered the product, it wasn't a good song. It was just another forgettable pop song that sounds like every other one, and it wasn't even that shocking. So you lost on both fronts. If you were going to go for shock value, this should have actually been shocking. You shouldn't be partially censoring your song and saying effed around, or hyping up your music video like it was going to be some crazy spectacle, and then all it actually is you dancing with a bunch of people and just being really gay when we're already used to you doing that. On top of that, the other two parts of that really screwed her, I believe, when I'm looking at this, is the fact that she keeps calling this her Miley Cyrus moment and forcing us, because mentally we didn't have to compare this to Miley Cyrus. Now, when we're looking at her rebrand, and you'll see it in a lot of the videos here on YouTube, when you're looking at her rebrand, everyone is now comparing to how she did it versus how Miley Cyrus did it, and how Miley Cyrus did her rebrand so much better. What JoJo should have done is she should have not hyped up how shocking this was going to be and just done it like Miley did. And also not mention Miley's name, so that we're not looking at this in the shadow of Miley Cyrus, because now it's impossible for us to divorce the two. And all we can see JoJo as is this copycat who has been idolizing Miley Cyrus since she was a little kid and is just literally trying to recreate her career. And we don't need another Miley Cyrus. We've already got Miley Cyrus, so why do we need another one? On top of that, the other thing, the second part of this where she really screwed up, is making it such a big deal and again announcing that she was becoming an adult and keep talking about how she's becoming an adult. Because what that does is it makes us not take you seriously as an adult, because you sound like a child. And even the rebrand, when we look at the rebrand, you look like a child who's trying to be an adult, who's pretending to do what she thinks is edgy, what she thinks is rebellious, what she thinks a 20-year-old would do, but it's a child who's trying to be like their older sibling. And when you keep talking to us about how you're about to become an adult, how this is officially the moment you're now an adult, we no longer take that moment seriously. When you look at other child stars who successfully made the transition into being taken seriously as an adult brand, like Ariana Grande, Olivia Rodrigo, Jenna Ortega, etc., they didn't make a big deal and keep announcing how they were now an adult. They didn't keep telling it to us. We can see that they're adults. They started taking on more serious roles. They started releasing more serious music. They started growing and maturing in their brand image and how they present themselves. Not all of these rebrands were as wild as Miley. And even when Miley Cyrus had her bangers moment, most people were making fun of her, but then she toned it back and returned with a much more mature brand that everybody could take seriously. But even when she had her bangers moment, she had the good music to back it up. My point here is JoJo JoJo Siwa didn't have the right package to be able to pull off this controversy and shock value approach. If all you're doing is going for shock value and doing whatever you can for attention, and you don't have something worthwhile to give people after you've gained their attention, you'll get your 15 minutes of fame, but you'll just be seen as an attention whore. And nobody's going to pay attention for you for a long time after that. So my biggest takeaway from this whole rebrand, it's a really great case study in using controversy and shock value in the wrong way. And a lesson for those of us who, as I recommend, you should use controversy if you're using it cleverly, but you need to make sure that you have something solid to back it up. So once you gain people's attention through that controversy, you're able to keep them around. Now, before I end off this video, on the flip side of that insight, I do want to give some credit to JoJo Siwa because I don't think she's an idiot. And I do think she's actually is a smart marketer, as well as her mom and the people that she has around her, because clearly they've been able to build a massively successful brand over the years. And I do actually see her being able to bounce back from this whole ordeal, depending on what she does and if she's smart about her next moves. But I'm also curious to hear your thoughts, because maybe you disagree with me. Let me know in the comments. Is there anything else about this rebrand where you think JoJo Siwa really messed up that I haven't pointed out in this video? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments. And what I'd be even more curious to hear from you is, what exactly do you think JoJo Siwa's next moves need to be if you were to give her a game plan on how to bounce back so that she can be taken seriously as an adult star? With that said, if you found anything in this video interesting or insightful or helpful or what have you, I would love it if you could drop a like on it so that YouTube's algorithm can give me a bit of love. And if you happen to be a business owner, content creator, or entrepreneur who wants more insights like these into branding and marketing, and most importantly, how to amass your own cult-like following around your brand online, then come join my Cult Builders private community, aka our secret society, at cultbuilders.com. You can also find that link in the description. Subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'll see you in the next one.